Well, hello there. Welcome back to the channel. My name is James, and here at 20th and 21st Movies, we are about all things cinema. Well, today I wanted to share with you my thoughts on a release from the Criterion Collection that came out a few years ago. This is actually a release that has been in the Criterion Collection for some time now. This is Spine number 62, and this is The Passion of Joan of Arc. And this is from director Carl Theodor Dreyer. And just want to share my thoughts with you on this film from director Dreyer. This is one of those films that really arrests you and really just captures your mind and captures your spirit, if you would. Directed by Carl Theodor Dreyer. And you have in here Rene Falconetti, and you have some other actors in here, Artois and Sylvain. And this film, I have to say, really touched and impacted me. And I just had to just come on here and share my thoughts on this film. So essentially, you know, this is the story of Joan of Arc. Of course, we've all heard of Joan of Arc. She was the Maid of Orleans. She was a heroine of France. She fought during the 100 Years' War, captured in 1430 by some French nobles who were allied to the English. Joan was turned over to English authorities who tried her on numerous charges and convicted her. And she was burned at the stake at the young age of 19. So this film is based upon the official trial transcripts preserved, I believe, in a French museum where they have the actual transcript of the trial of Joan of Arc, and it shows the questions from the English authorities and Joan's answers to those questions. And in this film, Carl Dreyer took care to be faithful to that transcript. So you are getting a dramatic representation of that trial. Of course, he had to put it into a cinematic format. So because it's a film, it doesn't include all the back and forth between the English authorities and Joan, but this film captures the essence of the trial, I think, beautifully. And it just shows a young woman who was a hero for her country, who was unjustly tried and convicted and became a martyr. So in this film, Carl Dreyer presents a pretty faithful representation of the trial of Joan of Arc. And I think what is so amazing about the way that this film is presented is the way that it was shot. There's so much in the way of close-ups of faces and sweeping motion of the different English authorities and going back to Joan and seeing her just startling and arresting expressions on her face and her eyes just being so horrified with what's going on and what's being done to her in this trial, and just seeing the intensity in which she's being asked these questions and their responses to her responses. And it's just a very captivating watch. This is a silent film, so you're not hearing any of the dialogue because it's a silent film, but it is an absolutely gripping drama that is being played out that is more gripping than probably any modern day courtroom drama that you'll see on television. It is so incredibly gripping, the way that Carl Dreyer shot this film in the back and forth between the English authorities, Joan, everybody that was involved in the proceedings. I'm just really impressed with the way that this film was shot and the way that this film was edited, and the way that Carl Dreyer presents the settings, the people, and just the action cutting back and forth between Joan and the authorities. I thought it was really well done, and part of the artistry that went into the making of this film is extremely impressive. But overall, this film is just an amazing piece of art that I just wanted to just share a few thoughts on in this review here. And it comes highly recommended in that regard. As a film that represents a piece of history, as a film that represents a very important event in history, that I think if you have not seen this film and you're watching this for the first time, you will be amazed at how this film was put together. This is a film from 1928. It's a silent film, but it is as arresting as any sound film courtroom drama that you will see in modern day. So Joan of Arc in 1431 was burned at the stake unjustly by the English authorities, but it took nearly 500 more years for her to be officially canonized and determined to be a saint by the Catholic Church. So she was canonized as a saint in the early 20th century, I think in 1920, I believe. Nearly 500 years after being martyred for being a heroine for her country and standing up for her religious faith. So as I said before, the human expressions and the faces really make this film. Rene Falconetti's performance in this film is legendary, and her expressions and her emotions come through so powerfully in this film. And it is really a big part of what makes this film an amazing film, and one that you should definitely consider experiencing and getting if you do not already have this Criterion Collection edition. So let me read here real quickly the description on the Criterion site. Spiritual rapture and institutional hypocrisy come to stark, vivid life in one of the most transcendent masterpieces of the silent era, chronicling the trial of Joan of Arc in the hours leading up to her execution. Danish master Carl Theodor Dreyer depicts her torment with startling immediacy, employing an array of techniques, expressionistic lighting, interconnected sets, painfully intimate close-ups to immerse viewers in her subjective experience. Anchoring Dreyer's audacious formal experimentation is a legendary performance by Rene Falconetti, whose haunted face channels both the agony and the ecstasy of martyrdom. It's all right there on her face. This is just one of the expressions from Rene Falconetti that is in this film, and her performance really makes this film. And it is definitely one that you'll want to check out. And as far as the special features on here, there's a 2K digital restoration. So I think overall, from a visual standpoint, this film looks really good. From a sound standpoint, you'll want to note that there are a couple of ways of experiencing this film, both in the visuals as well as the audio. So this film on this disc is presented in a 20 frames per second presentation and a 24 frames per second presentation. And with the 20 frames per second and 24 frames per second options, you have the option to play the film silent, or you have the option to play the film with a musical soundtrack. So on the 20 frames per second version, you get a soundtrack from Yamashita that you can play, or you can play it silent. On the 24 frames per second version, you get a choice of playing Voices of Light or a score from Gregory and Utley, and that's on the 24 frames per second version, or you can play it silent as well. So you get a couple of options for how you want to experience this amazing film that's included on this Criterion disc. Do you want to see it in 20 frames per second, 24 frames per second? Do you want to hear it with the soundtrack or without the soundtrack? Now, one of the features on here that you'll want to check out is there is a special feature on here that talks about 20 frames per second versus 24 and why that's important in the presentation of this film. And as you have a chance to watch both versions, you may form an opinion as to which version you prefer. I personally think they both look nice. Many people feel that the 20 frames per second presentation is a little bit more faithful to how the film should look, and that 24 FPS, the characters move a little too quickly. But it's really a matter of personal taste. I think watching this film in either version, you're gonna capture the experience of what's going on in this film. It's a beautiful film all the way around. And as far as the scores themselves, I think all the scores are very nice. I don't have a favorite among them. I would say that for me personally, I prefer watching this film with one of those scores versus watching it silent. I think I get a little bit more out of it with a little bit of the music there in the background than just watching the film silent, but that is an option that's available to you as well. But you also have a few other features on here. So you've got, in addition to the video essay by Tyberg exploring the debate over the film's frame rate, you also get an interview from 1995 with actor Rene Falconetti's daughter and biographer Helene Falconetti, so the daughter of Rene Falconetti in this film. You also get a nice feature on here that talks about the different versions of this film, so some history on the versions of this film. You get a production design archive and a trailer. So you get on here some nice stills from the production that I really enjoyed going through. And then included inside here Of course, you have this book here. This is a full booklet, The Passion of Joan of Arc. You have this disc here. And when you pull the disc out, you'll see just some of the scenery, the stark scenery of the area that's included on the inside of the disc art. Included in this nice booklet here, and you do get a full stapled booklet, which I like. You get a couple of nice features on here. You get an essay called The Face of Truth by Mark Le Fanu. You get on here Realized Mysticism in the Passion of Joan of Arc by Carl Theodor Dreyer. And you also get the Voices of Light libretto. So you get the actual lyrics from the opera, The Voices of Light. And then you get some information about the transfer. So included in here, you have some nice pictures, you have the essay, you have here your Voices of Light libretto. You have some nice information about this film in here. So I really enjoyed going through this booklet, and I think it's a nice addition in this edition. So overall, a very nice package from Criterion that you get with this edition from Criterion. Very nice disc art here, very nice booklet that you get here. And I think this makes for an excellent addition from the Criterion Collection. This film is an absolute work of art. A film that's amazingly presented by Carl Theodor Dreyer. I think they did an amazing job putting this film together. And it is a faithful presentation of history and just a beautiful work of art. So I highly recommend this edition from Criterion. This again comes in at spine 62. It's The Passion of Joan of Arc from director Carl Theodor Dreyer. Definitely check this one out. I also almost forgot to mention that you do get a commentary on this disc from Danish film scholar Casper Tyberg. And the commentary is pretty good, and it gives you a little bit more about the history of the events, Dreyer's style, his cinematography. So yeah, I almost forgot to mention, you do get a commentary on this disc. So this disc and this set from Criterion overall is fantastic, and I really cannot recommend this enough. And with the July Criterion Collection sale coming up, if you don't already have this edition from Criterion, if you like artistic films, if you like films that give you a piece of history, this is an absolute fantastic film and edition that you'll want to heavily consider picking up, because this film is a beautiful presentation of the Passion of Joan of Arc and the telling of a story that's a part of history that I think you'll want to check out. So this is The Passion of Joan of Arc. This is from director Carl Theodor Dreyer, and it comes in at Criterion Collections spine number 62. So definitely check this one out. Highly recommend. So those are my thoughts on this edition from Criterion. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this film? Have you seen The Passion of Joan of Arc? If so, what do you think of this film? And also let me know what you think of other films from Carl Theodor Dreyer. Do you have a favorite from filmmaker Carl Theodor Dreyer? If so, what is your favorite Carl Theodor Dreyer film? Also, let me know in the comments below what titles you are most looking forward to picking up in this upcoming Barnes & Noble Criterion Collection sale, as well as what films are you most looking forward to seeing this year, period, that are coming out in theaters. Are you looking forward to seeing the upcoming Bond film? Are you looking forward to seeing an upcoming Matrix film? What films are you looking forward to seeing that are coming out later this year? Let me know that in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time at the movies. Peace.